Hello viewers and welcome back to our DCS World Series. Today we'll be doing a hardware comparison video of sorts. As some of you guys may have noticed, I like to use TrackClip 5 for hit tracking inside my DCS World modules. And personally, I think that hit tracking is something that'll greatly enhance your experience with the simulator games. However, at a price point of $150, it's quite expensive, so I decided to take a look at some of the free alternatives to see how they match up. Namely, I took a look at FaceTrackNoIR, seeing as how it seemed to be the easiest to use free alternative, namely due to the fact that it didn't require any sort of do-it-yourself work on the actual webcam. We'll take a look at the specifications here in a moment. This is the TrackClip 5 physical module. It's actually fairly comparable to the size of a webcam. I've broken down the specifications into a few different key areas which I thought were fairly important. Starting off, the field of view determines how much play area, if you will, you have in front of your monitor, which may be important for some actions such as leaning to the sides or otherwise. The sample rate, of course, determines how fast the camera refreshes, which will influence how smooth and how accurate your movements will be represented in-game, and the sensor resolution I felt was... And I felt like the sensor resolution might be important, though those are, of course, heavily modified values determined by how the actual drivers use those numbers. Moving forwards, let's take a look at the driver suites for both of the different modules, starting off with FaceTrackNoIR. FaceTrackNoIR supports actually two tracker sources, aka two webcams. It also features a wide variety of different game protocols. You can actually switch it to track infrared sources as well, and its setup screen is generally fairly simple. Namely, setting up the tracking sensitivities inside the curved screen here was a fairly simple process, although personally I felt like you'd have to change these every single time that you started up the game. Moving forwards, TrackIR had a mixture of fairly advanced settings and fairly simplistic settings. Starting off, the first things that you'll notice is that the vast majority of the screen is, of course, dedicated to the 3D testing area, if you will. As you see on the side, currently I'm using the TrackClip Pro. It's a sort of an add-on to regular tracking using the TrackClip, and it also features some of the sensitivities for head tracking. Down here at the bottom of the screen, TrackClip 5 also offers you the ability to customize these curves to adjust the motions of your tracking system, although it did come with a fair amount of templates which I found to work right out of the box, so I didn't need to do this at all. It also has a few pre-configured sections for some fairly popular titles. Overall, I'd say that in terms of TrackClip 5, the actual customization here is something that most people won't do, although if they do need to do it, it's a fairly complex process from what I saw inside the FaceTrackNoIR system. In addition, TrackClip 5 offered a precision tracking mode, a toggleable feature which also has its own individual settings. This is of course used to make fine movements inside the game. Moving forwards, let's take a look at some of the in-game comparisons. During these comparisons, please note the time spent focused on either the labels of the enemy, or the Su-25T's attack monitor, and also of course stuttering or jittering. We'll start off with FaceTrackNoIR, and we'll just see how it goes.
Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized.
Атакуй цели по возможности.
Launch authorized.
Второй, понял. Второй, работаю по земле.
Launch authorized.
Второй, пуск ракеты. Второй, работаю по земле.
Launch authorized.
Enemy armor force confirmed destroyed. A new
Launch
armor group of 2
authorized.
units has been spotted advancing northwest out of the town and along the road. Take it out.
Pull up. Pull up.
Звену, атакуй корабли. Второй, не имею возможности. Звену, атакуй цели по возможности. Второй, не имею возможности.
Launch authorized.
Второй, обнаружена цель. Бронетехника, 12 часов. Удаление 7. Второй, обнаружена цель. Автотранспорт, 12 часов. Удаление 7.
Launch authorized.
Звену, атакуй цели по возможности. Второй, подтверждаю. Второй, работаю по земле.
Launch authorized.
Второй. Цель уничтожена.
Launch authorized. Launch authorized.
Второй. Работаю по земле.
A new armor group of 2 units
Launch
has been spotted
authorized.
advancing northwest out of the town
Launch
along the road.
authorized.
Take it out.
Pull up. Pull up.
Looking at the comparison, I'd say that FaceTrackNoIR performed acceptably compared to, of course, the premium dedicated module for head tracking, that is TrackIR 5. At the start of the video, as you saw, we had some slight issues focusing on our wingman, which was, of course, to our right, and during the climb away from the enemy, we had some difficulties looking back at the blue enemy labels and also to the diagonals, aka going, I believe, to the left and the right. To achieve these settings, I had to put on a fairly heavy dead zone so that the sensor didn't pick up any jittery motions, and also a high sample rate. Going back to the settings screen, as you may have noticed, the high sample rate of 45 frames for camera that functions at 30 frames per second was present, as well as the large dead zones inside the curves screen there. Overall, I'd say that for these settings, it performed decently well. It's definitely usable, although you will have, of course, quite a lot of stuttering and difficulty looking to the sides in general. Next up, we'll take a look at the dogfighting scenario for the Su-25T. These will be out of 2 rounds with both of the modules, of course. One thing to keep in consideration is that currently we're playing with the labels on, which makes targets much more visible. With that said, taking a look at the time we spend focusing and keeping these targets on screen will be incredibly important, seeing as how without those labels this would be an even more difficult task.
Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized.
Right, so that concludes round 1. Let's take a look at round 2 now.
Eject.
Press escape and then select briefing to view a list of useful key commands.
Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Fuel 1500. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Minimum speed. Minimum speed. Minimum speed. Minimum speed. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized.
With FaceTrackNoIR finished, we'll move on to TrackIR 5.
Звену, атакуй корабли. Второй, не имею возможности. Звену, атакуй цели по возможности. Второй, не имею возможности.
Launch authorized.
Второй,
Launch authorized.
Звено. Атакуй цели по возможности. Второй. Подтверждаю. Второй. Работаю по земле. Второй. На боевом. Второй. Пуск ракеты.
Launch authorized.
Второй. Цель уничтожена.
Launch authorized. Launch authorized.
Второй.
New armored force
Работаю по
confirmed
земле.
escape. A new armor group of 2 units
Launch
has been spotted
authorized.
advancing northwest out of the town
Launch
along the road.
authorized.
Take it out.
Pull up.
Two A-10s coming directly
Pull
at
up.
you. Use your R-60M and R-73 missiles to shoot them down. Press escape and then select briefing to view a list of useful key commands.
Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Fuel 1500. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Launch authorized. Minimum speed. Minimum speed. Minimum speed. Minimum speed. Minimum speed. Launch authorized. Launch authorized.
Right, so now that we've ran through the scenario a few times with the two modules, let's take a look and review their performances here. So, starting off with TrackIR 5, TrackIR 5 performed as expected, being a dedicated head tracking platform and all. As you may have noticed, there were a few minor times where I wasn't able to focus the camera exactly onto the enemy labels there. That is something that can be, of course, scaled and adjusted in what is unfortunately a editor that is slightly difficult to use. Taking a look at the FaceTrackNoIR performance, there were once again a few issues with looking to the sides and to the rear of the plane. The difficulty comes from this, I'd say, rather stuttery and unreliable angle in which turning to the sides causes the camera to either become very jittery or very inaccurate in general. These settings were of course captured again on the high sample smoothing rate and large dead zone. In addition, the problem of inaccurate, rather inflexible movement in the diagonals also makes an appearance. I'd like to say once again that in the event that you were playing this game without the labels for absolute realism, this would be even more important. Overall, looking at the comparisons done here to date, I have to say that FaceTrackNoIR is usable. However, I would only use it as, say, a trial for head tracking modules, and I wouldn't justify money on buying a webcam explicitly for the purposes of using the webcam as a tracking module there. TrackIR 5 overall performs expected, and I'd say that for its retail value of $150, it is a tad steep, although I think you're definitely getting your money's worth there. I hope you guys enjoyed this comparison, and be sure to like and subscribe for more.